Hmm.
Yeah.
No, one second.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Only 30 whole seconds. Episode 3 of season 4. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And this is Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
Follow the podcast, the Side Action Pod, on Twitter. So, Action, we had the big trip to Vegas. And we didn't get the massive roll that we're used to out of you, but we did, win some money at the end there, and certainly got into the contest. Enjoyed Stadium Swim. It was a fun trip.
Yeah, another enjoyable trip to the desert. No massive rolls, but I think we had a couple of mediocre ones that, when added together, you could argue was a successful uh, dice excursion. And we had some good football picks too. I think between you and me and Art, we all had some great winners, both in the books and then also in the contest, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, so our other guys, Primetime, Art Murphy, and Night Range and Paul Dempsey were with us in this trip. Dempsey's like one of these high roller slot guys. He's a $100 slot guy. He's just trying to hit the big jackpot, which he's done, and he got to get the
Yeah.
limo picking him up at the airport, taking him to Circa, and that got us a couple free entries into the pool, which was nice. And then Primetime, he was rolling that first time. I think the first time we hit the tables, maybe not at Paris. It was probably the next day at Circa. He was red hot. Of course, he left the table as soon as he got that money, which was funny. Um,
Art is always the prudent gambler for
he
sure.
is, he is. And then, of course, we were, I had that late roll, which I regret not betting the repeater. But at least I put money in your pocket. Hitting the eights and nines. Just crushing those for a while on the documented short table at what was it called? What's the place called?
O'Shea's,
O'Shea's,
a
part of Lincoln.
classic degenerate spot. Back in the day, it used to be like super rundown and like there would be 20-and-a-half-year-olds in there gambling and drinking and playing beer pong. They rebuilt it and it's a little bit nicer, but still fun.
Yeah, we had a good time. We definitely had a good time. That last roll was fun, and then obviously Primetime took us to Mr. Chow's, which is a really nice place. Besides the kind of freaky roof thing, or the ceiling thing that was coming down, the food was excellent. The Peking duck, but I don't know about you, Action. My stomach was stuffed when I hit that plane between all the booze we drank and that duck on the end. But you go home fat and happy, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. The duck helped me fall asleep as soon as I got on the plane. So that was certainly an added bonus to what was a wonderful meal.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll definitely do it again next year. Maybe we'll see if we'll do it on the March Madness trip. But we are going to win the $1 million, so maybe there'll be another trip. Which, as I'm telling everybody, they're like, "Yeah, you take us out there. Sure, we'll do a whole
Yeah.
trip with the bunch with all of our listeners."
Yeah, there you go.
So we did enter the contest. Obviously, we entered at Circa for the first time, the actual resort casino there. And you've already noted that 21 of our participants, which they got over 4,000, what was it, like 4,047 or something like that, some weird number. Is that right? So they did get the over.
40, 87. Close.
Okay, yeah, 87, 40, 87. But 21 came out of the gates, did not make their picks, which is hilarious. And we had discussed that these guys are not eligible for the booby prize of 100 grand because you have to make picks every week to be eligible for that. So they're starting at a disadvantage. And then the survivor pool, which did not get all the way to the overlay, there's actually a huge overlay there. We say well, about $1.8 million.
Hmm.
They didn't get to the 6 million. There were 8 entries that did put in survivor picks. So those guys are outright eliminated, right?
Correct. Dunzo burned $1,000 right out of the gate.
Hey, why not? We could do that at the craps table if we were looking.
True.
But yeah, so it's exciting. We'll get into the contest a little bit more where we're at, but definitely, we're in it. We're ready to go. This is what we're talking about all NFL season. So, let's just jump right into it, right, Action?
Hmm.
Well, let's talk about this first week of the NFL. Huge week for the dogs. The dogs were barking all week. We hit some money lines in there as well when we were at Circa and also at Caesars. The underdogs you had charted at 12-4 on the week. I think I had 11-5, depends on what you have the number. But the bottom line, a domination by the dogs and the unders, 9-7 for the week, as well as road teams, 9-6. against the spread this week. So, I mean, that's just incredible action for the first week.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that the underdogs fared so well. It makes you wonder if the home team, obviously the home teams were a little bit overvalued. I think you and I talked last week about what we thought home field advantage might look like this season with fans finally back into the stands. And it's pretty clear that it still might not be to pre-COVID levels in terms of like historically, we always thought about it as being 3 points, right? And perhaps the home field advantage isn't quite what it once was.
Right. I think the other thing too is, you look at a lot of teams that traveled this week. You had a lot of those NFC West teams that were 4-0 on the weekend. Three of them were on the road, I believe. You had the Steelers got a big win on the road. Miami too. Pretty good teams on the road for the most part. You had, obviously Green Bay was on the road. They got rocked. But I think that the books are going to adjust. I think the first week it's hard to figure out. There's not a lot of analytics for anybody, both better and books. So
Mhm.
we're all figuring that out. So I don't know. We'll take that into next week and see where we go with it. I know you have a general fit flavor that don't overreact, everybody. Don't overreact to
Yeah,
one, right?
no one freak out. You mentioned the NFC West going 4-0. I saw on your blog as well, but so did the AFC West.
Oh, there you go.
Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, and Raiders on Monday night came through the back door, kicked it down.
That's right. Good point. Good point. Thanks for reading the blog.
Of
But
course.
yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking, I didn't put that the NFC North went 0-4.
Mm.
So, you
The,
know,
the AFC South might as well be 0-4 between the Jaguars and the Texans. One of them won, but they're both losers in my mind.
yeah, somebody had to win that one. So you've got some highs and lows. You've got the highs. Saints and Jameis. I mean, they destroyed the Packers. 5 touchdown passes for Jameis Winston in 20 attempts. Action. He only had
Mhm.
14 completions in the game. Didn't need to do much because the Packers were so bad in that 38-3 romping of the pack.
Yeah, and on the flip side, it makes you wonder. I know you've got them on the lows, but what's wrong with the Packers? We talked about the humidity last week and their trips to Florida being less than impressive historically, and Aaron Rodgers spending all off season getting married in Hawaii and jumping off waterfalls and all that business. Perhaps he's just not ready to start the season.
Yeah. What is not ready to start the season for $100? So yeah, he was not ready after doing Jeopardy too. Yeah, good point. I mean, I think that I heard Mike Palm. This is jumping to our lows with Green Bay. I heard that between California and Florida, that they are like just they're terrible against with LaFleur or something like
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
They've averaged, I think, 3 points or something in the first half of all the last 6 or 7 games in California and Florida. So I'm not sure what that means. They're obviously great at home, but I expect them to bounce back this week against the Lions. But yeah, obviously weren't ready to play, and maybe the Saints made a good decision on picking Jacksonville, making it difficult for the pack to get there and not go to
Hmm.
Houston or some other place in Texas or something.
Yeah, definitely something to file away. I know they have both Tampa Bay, well, at least Tampa Bay and maybe Miami on the schedule this year. No, that's not right. It's just Tampa.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah. So you've also noted Chandler Jones, your guy. He had 5 sacks. The Arizona defense, that was one of our picks, both in the contest, and I had that on my card. Arizona dominated the Titans. It wasn't even a close game, and Kyler Murray was excellent on offense. But Chandler Jones with 5 sacks, and he dominated. And if that defense can play pretty well, my pick of Arizona making the playoffs looks pretty good.
yeah, they were awesome on Sunday. And it makes me wonder if it was really more about their performance in Arizona or if Tennessee is just not quite as good as we expected.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. And you put it on here. Teddy covers. You just mentioned the Broncos covering. They went to the Giants and they covered. They went 27-13 was the win. Teddy covers just keeps getting it done. He actually is on the Chicago Sting fantasy team now. But yeah, they get it done on the road. They look pretty good. They started off slow in that game, but slowly but surely wore down the Giants. And I believe they're on the road again this week, aren't they?
Yes, that's right. On the road in Jacksonville.
Yeah, so it's kind of a start, kind of like San Francisco's getting two road wins, hopefully. So we'll see. But I mean, Bridgewater, the good thing about him, he obviously had that devastating knee injury, came back from it. The guy's a pro. I mean, the guy's a pro. He's not going to light up the stat sheet, but he's definitely going to get the win and not turn the ball over for the most part.
Yeah, and that defense really was the star. I
Mhm.
think the Giants got a late touchdown. It was really a much larger score line than the final result.
Right. On our lows, I've got Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons. He was the other quarterback in Chicago State, by the way. He's on the
Yeah.
bench. They don't score a TD and they get housed at home by the Eagles. That was a game we kind of stayed away from because we didn't know what was going to happen. The Eagles' defensive line played great, and really the offensive line played well too. That was a complete shellacking. I was a little surprised that Atlanta couldn't take care advantage of those corners, but Matt Ryan, the Falcons look god awful.
Yeah, and we touched on it last week. It's really not a good offensive line, and I know looking at the box score, the Eagles really were getting after Matt Ryan and put him under a lot of pressure. The other thing I plucked out of the recap in that one is that the Falcons didn't really use Kyle Pitts. They
Right.
drafted him high, and he's supposed to be this, you know, otherworldly tight end. And in the red zone, he didn't have a single target on the first possession, and we'll be looking to see if they get him more involved moving forward.
He's on a fantasy team too, and I was high on him, so I hope so. But we'll see. We already mentioned the Packers, who didn't even get a touchdown against the Saints, but we had kind of mentioned how, and I mentioned this at some point, and we both took them, or at least I took them in the money line. I think you went again on board with the spread. That defensive line for the Saints just dominated the pack, and they really couldn't get anything going. But it was a little surprising they couldn't even get a late score. You did see a Jordan Love sighting in that game.
Yeah, late. That's right. I do remember that now. You mentioned it. We were throwing dice at O'Shea, so weren't intently watching, but
Right.
yeah, Aaron Rodgers got sent to the bench, and I think that was just having more to do with the score line than anything else.
Right, for sure. The last is just the Jags. Ouch. I just put ouch. They had their big shot to start off the season right against Houston on the road. Actually, I was kind of looking at Houston this game just because it looked a little fishy. This team getting favored. We didn't actually pick it in the contest, but more importantly, the offense didn't look good. You've noted three interceptions here for Trevor Lawrence, and that's one thing. But I just think the offense didn't look like a professional offense. We'll see if they can right the ship. There's a little bit of rumblings that maybe USC is after Urban Meyer as they Clay Helton, which they should have done, last year. So I don't know. Any thoughts on the Jags?
Yeah, they stink. Actually, the offensive line performed better than I expected when I went back and looked through the box score. They only allowed 2 sacks and really were at the top of the rankings in terms of offensive line play. So,
Right.
one bright spot that I certainly didn't expect based on the final outcome.
Yeah, one of the other things I saw on Twitter, which is shocking, that 37% of the dropbacks for Houston, Tyrod Taylor was under pressure
Mhm.
by the Jags defensive line. So obviously his escapability must have helped in that situation. We barely watched that game. So
Okay.
maybe they're a little underrated and, hint, hint, I might be looking at them this week and I know you won't go with me, but we'll see if they bounce back. You've got some key injuries here. There were a slew of injuries right away. Demarcus Lawrence, I think he had a foot injury. He's going to be out this week, maybe for several weeks.
Mhm.
Jerry Judy, my guy for the Broncos, he's out for at least 3 weeks. I think it's more than that actually, but we'll see with his ankle injury. You've got Jeff Oduka from the Lions. He tore his Achilles, defensive back out for the season. Jason Verrett also out for the season. Is that a knee injury as well? Knee injury this time?
Yeah, I think ACL for him.
Okay. Raheem Mostert is out at least 8 weeks for the Niners. Not Trey Sermon. What's the guy's name? Elijah Mitchell. He's like
Nailed it.
all the rage on the waiver wires for fantasy players. Trey Sermon was inactive, a healthy scratch, which was crushing. I didn't have him in the lineup, but kind of weird there.
Hmm.
You've got Mekhi Becton for the Jets. He's an offensive tackle. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. That could really hurt them against the Patriots this week. And probably the most important injury in my view, although we'll talk about this, is that the Washington football team lost Ryan Fitzpatrick to a hip. What is it called? A hip.
Subluxation.
Yes, yes, which is basically not quite a dislocation, but it's just slightly out of socket. But he's out for at least 3 weeks. I think it's going to be more. Heineke's there. Do you think there's a downgrade between Fitz and Heineke with the game tonight?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we all remember last season in the playoffs when Taylor Heineke really ripped through the Buccaneers in that memorable playoff game. But I do think that he's at least 1.5 or 2 points worse than Fitzpatrick.
Right.
We only saw like 1 or 2 drives out of Fitz on Sunday afternoon, but they were moving the ball, and really Heineke did too. I will add, it was really the late fumble by Antonio Gibson that did us in that one.
Yeah, when you fumble at your own 4 yard line or something or whatever it was, that's a bad look. Well, let's go over kind of initial power rankings. Later in the season, I'll have the Wegs index, kind of, my metrics, and then we always also review the DVOA, which is what is that again? What does the D stand for?
Defense adjusted. I don't remember. We got to look it up for next week. We'll have that next week.
That's basically, you hear that all the time, DVOA, but it's basically where people are against each other, with usually yards per play or something. I've got the rankings as Chiefs 1. You could argue whether the Bucks are 1-2, but I thought the game was a little closer. Chiefs had to come back. You got 1 and 2, Chiefs 1, Bucks 2. I got the Saints at the 3. It may be a big stretch, but Jameis certainly had a great game, and we know their defense. I had the Cardinals at 4, Rams 5, and Steelers 6. This is week 1. We don't know where it's going to go. What do you think of that list?
I think it's a pretty good list. I was wondering when I saw you put this on here. So this is off Weg's top of head list.
Yeah, it's just off the top of my head. There was no metrics at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think at first blush, I would see the Cardinals at 4 as being a little bit overrated right now. It was a fantastic performance against Tennessee, and we backed them and got the W there. But I believe that Tennessee is probably worse than the Cardinals are, that much higher or elite. So
Right.
That would be the one team that I would put a question mark next to on the list. Others, I think, are spot on.
Yeah, when you kind of compare that to DVOA, and you say with prior, so this is kind of with their preseason ranking factored in.
Yeah, for the first 4 or 5 weeks, Football Outsiders uses the last season metrics as a percentage of the ratings, and then every week that goes by, they bring it down a little bit to at some point at week 5. They completely get rid of all of past season numbers, and they're looking forward completely into 2021. And it is defense adjusted value over average, DVOA.
There you go. So it's got the Bucks at 1, Chiefs at 2, like we said. It's still got the Ravens in there, which obviously has more to do with last year than this year. Mm-hmm. Rams, Seahawks, and Saints. So, and I can see the Seahawks. They had a great game against the Colts. They played really well. The Ravens, we didn't talk about their game. They blew it, up 14 points. Obviously, eventually the Raiders just started throwing it all over the yard and could not stop them. It was really a fun Monday night game. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get to the big game this week, but kind of a letdown for the Ravens there. And, Harbaugh, he didn't look good after that game, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, let's jump into the actual games for this week and the posted lines for the Circa contest to try to whittle it down to our select few that we will pick from for our contest. We won't talk much about tonight's game, but Washington is a 3.5 point favorite at home against the Giants. It opened at 3. I know it's kind of gone up, maybe around the 4 range now. If you look at those numbers, the total's 40.5. It's down from 43 at the opener. This is one of these classic kind of, road dog division game, really low total. Everybody that I hear, at least Josh Applebaum, who picks all underdogs like my partner used to last year, is all over the Giants, and I'm kind of inclined to see that too. I want Washington to win. 3.5 is a tough number.
Yeah, and well, I think the Giants have had their number in the last couple of seasons. Just pulling up the head-to-head, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row. Mm-hmm. Now the Giants have beaten Washington. So a little bit of history there too. But Barkley is questionable, and I'm watching the pregame here out in the corner of my eye. It looks like he's warming up. So that gives me a little bit of pause. And I really think that the Giants just stink. They couldn't move it at all last week against Denver. And I think that Washington's defense actually underperformed in that Chargers game. And
they couldn't get off the field on third down.
Yeah.
It was like 60 or 75% complete or conversion rate for the Chargers.
And there's no way that the Chargers are going to be able to sustain that level. We can talk about that later. Right. But I like Washington. I don't think I would lay 3.5, but I definitely am considering putting them in as a survivor pick.
Okay, good call. Good call. Good point. I got to remember my survivor pick. So
Yeah.
the second game is another kind of situation. It's a division rivalry. It's the New Orleans is going to Carolina. So this is obviously off the big win for really both teams had good wins. Sam Darnold looked pretty good in the Carolina game. Jameis looked incredible in the New Orleans game. Started off as a pick 'em. I don't know when that was set. 47.5. In our contest, it's 3.5. Consensus shows that it's 3.5 and down to 44-point total. You like Carolina in this game. I understand why. Division opponent, home, getting 3.5 points could be a letdown spot for the Saints. Is that your theory?
Yeah, definitely. I think that this is one of those numbers that I think has moved up from what it should have been just based on week one performances. I mean,
Right.
obviously Carolina won, so it's not your classic like loser versus winner type of matchup. But I mean, the look ahead on this game was Saints -3. And for a few minutes earlier this week, it got pushed all the way up to 4. I was lucky enough to jump on Carolina +4, and now it's settled in at 3.5. And my handicap is really just the Carolina rush defense. That defensive line has been really good in the last couple of years, and they just held the Jets to 2.6 yards per carry last week and
Right.
250 total yards. And I think even though the Saints played really well and Jameis had 5 touchdowns, you mentioned it, he only threw for 148 passing yards. It was really the running game that did the damage, and I think that Carolina's going to be able to suppress that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean the low total again. This is kind of for our newer listeners. Lower totals with spreads over 3. That's kind of what you're looking for, right? You're looking for that value. When you see these low totals, I mean, this is going to be a hard fought game. So 3.5, that hook is just, it's begging you to bet it. So we'll talk in a minute. I don't know if I can get all the way on board with you on that one, just because I think there may be some stronger teams out there, but I get the theory and I understand what you're saying here.
Okay. I do also like the under in this game, divisional game. You've already seen it go from 47.5 to 45, and I think there's still a couple 45s available, which is a key number.
Right, right, for sure. The next one is Houston, Cleveland. Cleveland blew a pretty big lead to Kansas City, which, Kansas City always comes back. Houston obviously got their win, probably, I said, on the season, but they opened as a 13-point dog on the road, meaning Houston, with a 45.5 point total. It's up to 48 now. Basically the same spread. It's 12.5 in the contest. It's a big number. I don't know if I can go with it. I certainly can't do it with Houston. I know that they played a good game, but Cleveland's kind of in a position where they got to win a game. They can't go down 0-2 and they're coming home. So now Odell Beckham, I don't know if you had that on your list. He's out
No.
too. And he's
Mhm.
still out. He ended up not even playing. He didn't even suit up, which is kind of weird. But at least Stefanski's kind of ending the nonsense, and he's ruling him inactive already at this point. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I definitely wouldn't see myself laying the points with the Browns, but I do think that they're going to win this game pretty comfortably. The Browns offensive line was graded at the number one offensive line last week against that Chiefs D, and I got a feeling that Nick Chubb and his cohorts will run all over Houston on Sunday. So I, I think this is a pretty good number and one I'm willing to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, can you get on board with this one? The mighty Bengals who got their win in overtime and actually pretty good against a Vikings team that was, I don't know what was with that team. They're going to Chicago, my team, the Bears. Sure, the Bears open as a 4-point favorite at home, 45-point total. In the contest, it's 2.5 with a 45-point total still. I'm on the Bears, man. I'm not saying I'm all in here. We know the Bears looked bad last week, but the Rams were they were overmatched. I mean, the Rams are a good football team. The defensive line's great. 2.5 is a nice number for a home team to me. Plus, I just kind of feel like the Bears. I was talking to my buddy Ulrich about it. They can't go 0-2 if they're going to try to make the playoffs. It's a big, big spot for them. And the Bengals, if you look at the Bears' schedule, this is the one they got to go after. They have a rocky schedule coming up. So that's kind of my angle. It's not really necessarily they're a better team than Cincinnati. I think it's kind of even, but under a field goal seems reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, the line move really gives me some pause in this game. I understand your perspective. I think that this is definitely one of those one team looked terrible on Sunday Night Football, no less, with standalone game and all of America watching on opening weekend. And on the flip side, the Bengals came out and beat a pretty good Minnesota team. So, of course, people are lining up to bet on the Bengals. The number has gone from 4, although I'm seeing some ones on my screen, Wegs. And
Wow.
I wish I had the Bengals +4. It'd be a nice juicy middle for this game.
No kidding.
But
Really seen
uh,
this?
Bet online has a 1 right now.
Okay, interesting.
So
International money all over the Bengals.
it gives me a little pause, to be quite honest with you, but I
Yeah.
totally get the value. I mean, and I think that the Bears are going to be a little bit of a contrarian play as well.
Mhm.
So, I mean, their offense was putrid. I know it was the Rams, but they had 4.7 yards per pass, and Dalton just wasn't throwing it down the field. And I don't know, do you think that is going to change at all, or are they going to try to run this little dink and dunk offense with Dalton?
I think they did it against the Rams. I mean, that defensive,
Right.
I don't, is the Bengals defensive line that good? I know that I've heard on the shows because, we were obviously in the book. It's hard to pay attention to all the games, but I understand that the Vikings, they really didn't get a ball across midfield but once, in most of the game until the end. So the Bengals really dominated the game, even though they almost blew it. So maybe they're onto something here. I guess I just kind of feel like the Bears defense, they still have a good defensive line, and I think they will take advantage of the Bengals, offensive line. It's really more, will they give up the big plays? I mean, the Bears gave up huge plays in that game to Van Jefferson and Cooper. I mean, Cooper Kupp had like an 80-yard bomb or something. You can't do that. And Jamar Chase had a big catch. He did catch it, America. So, we don't have to go after this one. I think I'll be on the Bears side this week, which is surprising.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add too in that Minnesota game, that they had 12 penalties in the first half. So they were definitely moving the ball. They just couldn't get out of their own way in that first half. And I don't even think they hardly got it across midfield.
Right.
So
They didn't.
um, I definitely don't think that the Cincinnati defense is as good as they looked last week. Definitely ranked, well, the just on last week's numbers, they're ranked second in rushing DVOA, but they're certainly further down the list when you consider last year's priors. So I don't think we should throw it out. I was prepared to really battle you on this one, but we might be able to sneak Chicago in there late. We'll see.
We'll see. Well, the next one is Vegas traveling to Pittsburgh. The Raiders dramatic win, come from behind win, overtime win, exciting game. Derek Carr looked great. He was slinging it around. This game opened as a 5.5 point favorite for Pittsburgh, 49-point total. Total's actually gone down to 47. In the contest, it's a 6-point total. So it seems to me, although consensus says 5.5, that this is kind of an anticipatory line by Circa, thinking this game's gonna get bet up for the Steelers, which may be a benefit. I'm actually on the Steelers here. I know they had a big win, and it was mostly from defense and special teams, but I got to see a letdown from the Raiders here going across country, and they're going to play great defense where I think the Ravens, their secondary was exposed.
Yeah, they couldn't guard Darren Waller on Monday night. And I
Yeah.
think that Minka Fitzpatrick might have a little bit more of an answer against that man. So I like you. I like your pick in this game. I think that this is one of the supreme letdown spots of all letdown spots. The Raiders coming off of the huge Monday night opening the stadium with the crowd coming into for the first time, and now they have to go across the country for an early kickoff against Pittsburgh and that defense. I think that this has a chance to get ugly, and I definitely like the Steelers as well. I think this is probably one of the best teaser picks that I can remember in quite some time. You could pair up Pittsburgh with almost any other game and feel like that's a leg that's going to win. All they have to do is win in that case.
Yeah, exactly. Tease it down to really zero to a pick 'em. That'd be great. So just so people don't know, haven't been listening since the beginning, teasers, you can kind of pair it up, whether it's a total or another game, and tease the points down, by 6 or so, or up, if you so choose. In this case, he's saying tease down, which I like a lot. The next game is Buffalo and Miami. This is again still in the 1 o'clock time window. Another AFC divisional foe here for Miami. Going on the road. Probably shouldn't have won the game, admittedly, but I'm glad we cashed the ticket with a late fumble by Damian Harris. They open up as a 2.5 point favorite at home. No, 2.5 point dog at home, 48.5 point total. In the contest, the Bills are 3.5 point favorites with a 47.5 point total. And everybody was on the Bills. I know we talked about them. I like the Bills generally. I didn't like them in that first matchup. It proved right. Their offense looked out of sync. Miami played what they play. They're a grind them down to game. That's what they're going to do in this one. If they can control pace, I think they really like it. I know you're on the Bills. I like Miami here. I don't know. Talk me into the Bills. I don't think I can get on board with you here. Home team, 3.5 points.
Yeah, but I mean, you were right. They should have lost on Sunday, and thankfully for us in our contest pick, Damian Harris fumbled in a crucial situation,
You did.
and Tua was able to run the clock out. But I think this is a really distinct matchup advantage for the
Okay.
Bills. They've won 5 straight games in this series with really much of the same coaching staffs and game plans. And the Bills offense, although they didn't score a lot of points last week, they really had a lot of success against Pittsburgh. They put up 4.7 yards per carry against that Pittsburgh defense and almost 400 yards of offense. What really shot them was the red zone conversion, where they only scored a touchdown 1 out of 4 trips.
Right.
And on the flip side, I'm just not sure. I mean, historically, this matchup has featured a ton of points. I think they've gone over the last 3 or 4 matchups, and I think that this game has the opportunity to be another shootout.
Okay.
And I think that makes the 3.5 a little bit less valuable when you're looking at it from the Miami perspective,
Got it.
and it makes me want to side with the Bills too. Also, when you look at the line comparison last week against Pittsburgh, they were laying 6.5, and so if you remove that 2 point home field advantage, it's like 4.5, and now they're only 3.5 on the road against Miami. So that tells you that Miami and Pittsburgh are only a 1.5 difference, and I'm not sure I would buy that when you compare the two.
Okay. I mean, I know your theory, and I don't think you're wrong. I think the Bills are going to probably win this game. That hook scares me, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
it scares me, and I know that's why they put it in the contest because if they put it at 3, probably everybody would go with that.
Hmm.
Um, let's put it as a yellow.
Okay.
Maybe you can talk me into it, and maybe I just on my own side I can bet Miami and feel good about it, or tease them, get them up to
Yeah.
9.5. But it's that Miami red zone offense or defense is really good. I don't know what they do.
True.
I don't know what Flores does. He puts some stuff in the water for those guys. They don't give up a lot of red zone scores. You saw it last week too. The Patriots got stymied. I think they even didn't they intercept one inside the 5 as well. I think that saved our bacon as well in that game.
Hmm.
They were just right there for them. So anyway, let's go to the next one. The Rams against Indianapolis. This is the Rams are on they're hitting the road this time. They going across the country to your Colts. The Colts, their second home game. They kind of got blitzed last week. 3 point favorites for the Rams, 45.5 point total on the opener. And the contest is 3.5. Consensus says 4 with the 47.5 point total. So the total ticked up. It's one of these things, could be another letdown spot for the Rams. I just didn't like Carson Wentz. We
Hmm.
talked about them last week. We were considering them in the contest. Thank God we didn't take the Colts. They didn't look good on either side of the ball, in my view. And Wentz just, I don't know. What's the matter with this guy? Maybe he's not a good quarterback. A lot of people were clamoring him at the book, just destroying him.
Hmm.
I don't disagree. He didn't look good, and it just doesn't seem like this team is as good as we thought they'd be.
Yeah, they definitely didn't play well last week. Only 336 yards, and they also got a late touchdown, which made the final score look better than it really was. Um, I'm with you. I don't think that I would be running to the window to back Indianapolis here, but there's a lot of value on the
Mhm.
Colts. I think this just the flip side of the Bears and Bengals that we talked about. You have a team that came off a Sunday Night Football romping, and everyone is looking to back LA in this spot to the
Yep.
tune of, I'm guessing, probably 60. Let's see, let's look at the bet splits. 70% of the bets are on the Rams,
Right.
and it was the look ahead line was only 2.5, so now it's up to 4. 3.5 in the contest might be telling us a little bit something about where the right side is.
Yeah, and Applebaum, the guy from VSiN, he's always all over the dogs, but he sees this as, West Coast team coming to the East Coast, even though Indianapolis is in the Midwest, but they're in East Coast time zone.
Mm-hmm.
He's all over Indy in this one for 3.5. It's hard. It's hard for me to back teams that I don't have faith in right now. It's only been 1 week though. So, we
I'm
weren't
happy
even
to.
sure when was going to start. So we'll see. I mean, maybe we can consider it if we're kind of on the fence here. I'm hoping we got some more. We're running out of picks here.
I'm happy to sit this one out and watch Indianapolis once again. I think you're probably on the right track there.
Right. All right. Another game in the 1 o'clock window is San Francisco against Philly. San Francisco stays. I'm hoping they stayed out here in the Midwest and go to the East for this one to play Philly. Both both winners in week one. 4-point favorite for San Francisco at Philly. 45.5-point total. In the contest, it's all the way down to 3 with a 50-point total. So it looks like either the betting public or somebody's moving this number towards Philly. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Hurts looked good. They played a bad team, though. San Francisco obviously played a bad team and let them in the back door almost. We didn't mention that. Prime almost lost it, tried to tear.
Oh, yeah.
He put all this cash in on San Francisco, our pick, and man, he got a push. He had to sweat out that push for the 8. And San Francisco was clearly the best team, in that game. They just kind of let it up, and maybe the fatigue. I was writing about that in the blog post. Fatigue definitely set in for some of these teams. What do you think about this game? It's an interesting number.
It is really interesting. And, at first I thought, wow, this really looks depressed in terms of the 3. But when I went back and looked at the look ahead lines, it actually was only projected to be 3.5. So not a huge move, although going from 3.5 to 3 is certainly a big move when you're talking key numbers.
Yep.
And, the Philadelphia line just played really well last week. And I was really thinking that I would be lining up to back the Niners here, but I have some hesitations because of that. I think this could be a potential letdown spot. And Hurts was awesome too. We didn't even mention him. So I'm thinking that I might be passing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's Philly or pass, which is weird for me to say because Niners are my Super Bowl pick, not to win it, but to get there. It's hard to play these back-to-back on the road, even though they've done it before where they've kind of been road warriors early in the season. I think one season San Francisco was on the first 3 games on the road. But, Philly, are they that far removed from being bad last year? No, So, I mean, commitment to the run, and obviously Hurts is dynamic. It's really, like you said, if the defense can hold up against that run game, which, maybe they can. Mostert's out. You got the new guys, Garoppolo, make him throw. That's the way to beat them. So.
Yeah, and Brandon Ayuk, who knows what's going on with that guy? Cost me a couple of fantasy games last week with his donut. So I know that Deebo Samuel had a big game in his place.
He did. All right, let's get to the next. There's 2 more games in this 1 o'clock window, a lot in this window. Denver is going to Jacksonville. The aforementioned Jacksonville. Denver opened as a 2.5-point favorite, 43.5-point total on the road at Jacksonville. It's now up to 6 in the contest, and that's the consensus, 45.5-point total. The Broncos did play great against the Giants, who stink. We know Jacksonville stinks. But this is another one we just talked about. Everybody's going to be lining up to bet Denver. 6 points is a lot in an NFL game. It's their first home game. Jacksonville's got to play better, right?
Oh, I hope so. It's not really hard to go over that bar, though.
Only one way to go.
I'm with you. I think that Denver's going to smash in this game. This is my second teaser leg, I think, of the week. I like Denver to win this game, but this look ahead was 2.5. So when you're talking about 2.5 and now 6, it's really hard to line up and go on that side. But I'm not sure that I want to put a contest pick behind the Jaguars either.
No, I knew you'd say that, but I had it out there. Maybe I'll bet the Jags. I'm not going to bet money line, but it's a good this is a good teaser. This is another teaser one. Put them up to 12. Plus 12 at home. Come on, it's almost not a gimme, but we'll see. So
low total too, super low total, 43.5. Although it's ticked up to 45 now, but those 6 points are a lot more valuable with a 45 total.
That's right. How about this one? Can I interest you in a Jets game? I know you love the Jets.
Yeah.
So New England at the Jets. It's a New England Open. They obviously had the tough loss with your guy Mac Jones. I know you already got his jersey on order. It's on back order because everybody loves this guy. They open as a 3.5 point favorite on the road, 44 point total. In the contest, it's 5.5, so pretty big line movement. 42.5 point total went down. We're both on the Patriots, though, right? They're not going to lose two in a row in the division. And it's really more for me. And I really like Zach Wilson. I think he played pretty good in the first week. You put that him against Belichick, he's going to have a game plan that's going to stymie him. So we'll take the 5.5, or we'll lay the 5.5, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but Mekhi Becton is now out for the Jets. And with him in the lineup, they gave up 6 sacks last week to Carolina.
Right.
And that Patriots defensive line, I think, is going to be in the backfield and pressure in Wilson's face throughout the game. I think this is a great pick. I like the Patriots too.
Woohoo! We got a consensus green one. There we go. There we go. All right, let's move to the 4 o'clock window games. There's only four this week. We've got Minnesota going to Arizona. Minnesota has to open two on the road, which isn't great. They didn't play very well. They kind of blew the game at Cincinnati with the fumble by Dalvin Cook late. So here we go. They open as a 2.5 point dog on the road at Arizona, 49.5 point total. Cardinals looked like gangbusters. Now they're 3.5 point favorites at home, 15.5 point total. You're on Minnesota, right?
Yeah, gotta be. I definitely wouldn't touch Arizona in this game,
Right.
but to be honest with you, I don't know that I want to play Minnesota either until I actually see something out of them. Something tells me that there's some turmoil going on there, just with their performance last week and throughout the preseason. Even though I discounted that in our handicap last week, I would like to see them prove it once here before we put our hard-earned cash behind them.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, trust me, I know you've got Kyler Murray. You want to see him light it up. I've got, players on that team as well. Minnesota was disappointing. And
Mhm.
Zimmer, I thought that they'd be pushing for a playoff spot. I just thought that they had enough, of the roster. But this is a situation. He better get his team together. He could be really on the hot seat for getting fired. I mean, he's been a successful coach, but when you look at the last couple of years, they have really underperformed. So, and Arizona's on the rise. Let's skip that game. How about this one? Atlanta and Tampa. These are bad lines. Tampa obviously won the game, but they didn't cover against the Cowboys. Divisional rival in Atlanta, who sucked. They opened as a 10.5 point favorite at home, Tampa, with a 52 point total. It's the same total, but it's up to 12.5 in the contest. Can you really lay 12.5 in this contest, though?
No, no, I would only look to one side in this game with Atlanta, but I don't know. That could be like 6 or 7 down the list. I mean, I do think that the Tampa Bay rush defense is really going to put a stop to Mike Hill, or what's his name? What's the running back's name? Mike
Mike
Davis.
Davis.
Thank you.
Mike Davis.
I was thinking Brian Hill, Mike Davis.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to fall on the shoulders of Matt Ryan. And I just wonder if the Falcons' offensive line is going to be able to hold up to give him enough time to push the ball down the field. Dak Prescott really lit up that Tampa Bay secondary last week. And I think that's the only way the Falcons could cover.
Yeah, I mean, but Dallas, although Gallup got hurt, Dallas has three legit wide receivers, and a great running back. So Atlanta, as we talked about, you got to use the new tight end in Pitts, and you've got Ridley. You don't have Julio Jones anymore. You can't quite spread the field out the way, Dallas can. I don't think a lot of teams can do that. So I think Tampa might come out. They might not be the 12.5, but they're going to smash this team. It's just, it's first divisional game. They got to get it going. And people think that they're vulnerable after last week, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, true.
Here's a game I think we're both on the same side. I don't know. We'll see. And this is an interesting contest line. Tennessee is going to Seattle. Seattle came off the big win on the road. Tennessee looked like shit. So, of course, it opens a 3.5 point favorite for Seattle with a 49 point total. Total's all the way up to 54. In the contest, it's 6, where you have consensus at 5.5. We're both on the Titans here, right? I mean, I think Seattle's a pretty good team. I know Ridgway dogged our. She listens to our podcast at least. Thank you, Ridgway.
Uh-huh.
But she was like, "Oh, you didn't like Seattle, huh?" It's like, well, yeah, okay. Seattle played good against the Colts team that looked like garbage, and they get the Titans. Maybe they outmatch the Titans, but in my view, 6 points is a big number, and I don't know if Seattle can stop the run. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I this is another one that was the, who's rising, who's falling after week one. A look ahead number on this one was 4.5, and now it's up to 6. And I set some alerts on my app today, and it touched 6.5, and I thought it was going to go to 7 at one point.
Wow.
So if it reaches 7, that would give me some pretty serious concern about who the sharps really think is the right side in this one.
Right.
So, I mean, on the surface, I do agree. I think that the values with Tennessee, but the offensive line was so bad last week.
They were.
And I don't know much about Seattle's defensive line, but I certainly think that Tannehill could be under a little bit of pressure again this week, which could
Right.
make it difficult. And their defense is not any good. So I think that Russell Wilson is going to have his way. And it's going to be a lot of points in this one. 54 is the total.
Do you think that obviously they have a new offensive coordinator in Seattle. Obviously he was allowing Russell to cook, as they say, but we'll see if Pete Carroll will pull the reins in there. We know that Tennessee gives up the long ball. I mean, God, I mean, Russell Wilson's not quite as quick as Murray, but he can get on the edge as well. So maybe it is a stay away game because Seattle is definitely going to score in this game. I do agree with the move on the total going up by 5 points.
Yeah,
But,
right.
maybe
Definitely.
right. Maybe 6 points is a less value when you have a game that's pushing almost 60 points.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the splits from last week, Arizona threw it on 50% of their pass plays, and they still put up 8.8 yards per pass attempt. So
Okay.
Kyler Murray was cooking as well. And
Mhm.
I I don't know. I think this move kind of tells a story, to be honest. I had set the alert and maybe would wait around for a 7, but I'm not sure that Tennessee's the play.
Right, right. Okay. Well, we still got a couple more in the card we can pick from, and I think we like these. So Dallas is going to the Chargers. Dallas looked really good on Thursday. Of course, they get a little bit of added rest too with this game. The Chargers, I mean, won a hard-fought battle, benefited from the turnover in Washington. So the Chargers open as a 3-point favorite at home, 50-point total. It's all the way up to 55 and 3.5 in the contest. I did originally like the over in this game, but
Yeah.
to me, it's too much. 55 is too high. I don't know, but I like Dallas here, 3.5. I don't know. Again, and we like the hook. I like the hook in this situation. The Chargers are a good team. I do think they're going to be good this year, but Dallas can score, and I think that the Chargers, they're going to have to actually play some defense in this game like they didn't against Washington.
Yeah. Look ahead on this one was 2, LA -2, now out to 3.5, which is a little curious for me.
Hmm.
Like you, I thought Dallas performed well in the standalone game on Thursday night.
Hmm.
And the Chargers really didn't do much in terms of the running game. I know that Eckler was
Yep.
non-existent, and
Right.
I was reading that they were actually taking him off the field on some third downs in favor of the rookie running back Larry Roundtree because of his pass protection abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that was an interesting nugget, but I agree that I think that Dallas is has some value here at 3.5, even without Gallup. I think they're still going to be able to pass the ball, and that offensive line has held up. Lael Collins is still going to be out, I think, so one lineman down. But Dak is certainly looks like his normal self, and that gave me some positive vibes last week.
Well, as you said earlier, they converted at like 70 or 75% on third down, but only
Mhm.
scored 21 points. Um, like, I don't even know how that's possible, but it was just late in the game. I mean, we were watching the game. Keenan Allen, I mean, the bunch formation. Please God, stop trying to follow the guys in the bunch. Just take the guy to your side, play some zone on these guys. And Herbert, I mean, look, he played really well. He's got a nice arm. I really like him as a player. But if Dallas can get him in a shootout situation, maybe he makes some mistakes. And so I don't know. I like Dallas in the spot. What do you think about the total? You think this is an under at this point at 55, or you still would push the over?
Oh, no, I wouldn't play it under at all. I like you, and apparently the rest of America really like the over in this game. What I would probably do is make a note of that and see if it starts out a little slow. Look for a live number like 51, 52, somewhere in that range. Try to
Okay,
put in a live bet.
gotcha. All right, so now the Sunday night game and Monday night game, we said we were going to stay away from it, but I see there's notes below. Kansas City is playing at Baltimore. Baltimore or Kansas City opened as a 2.5 point favorite on the road, 53.5 point total. In the contest, it's 3.5 with a 55 point total. Baltimore getting back-to-back, primetime situations. Kansas City, we know what they can do. Unfortunately, Kansas City owns these guys in them head-to-head, but I like these points action. I think Baltimore, they didn't play great in the second half of that game. And of course, Kansas City's a second half team. But I just kind of feel like they can't go down 0-2 in the AFC and lose these big two AFC games, and they're going to come up and play a great game. What do you think?
Nah, I don't think I could back the Ravens. They've lost 3 in a row. You mentioned to basically the same teams last 3 seasons.
They have.
Kansas City's got them. And I think they did cover in one of those. They were catching 6.5 one year, maybe the first year.
Oh, on the road, yep.
But they have not covered in the last 2. And I think, we'll get to Lamar Jackson, but the defense is what surprised me. They gave up 500 yards against the Raiders on Monday night. 6.1 yards per play is not a characteristic Ravens performance.
Right. But you're okay. I'm gonna challenge you here. Not that you have on the Ravens board, but is that an overreaction? It's week 1. Maybe they're gonna fix some stuff. Obviously the line tells you the story. It's gone up a full point on the road, right? I mean, we know the Chiefs are great, but if this game was played, whatever, like you said, it would probably be. I mean, can you see the Ravens not being? I mean, were the Chiefs favored last year? But did they go on the road to Baltimore last year and they were favored?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was 3. I can look up the number here quick.
Okay.
You're right, dude. There's value on the Ravens if you're looking at it from a pure numbers perspective, but there's just some sort of malaise over them. I know that Lamar Jackson is coming off of COVID. I don't recall how long ago it was, but he just didn't look like his normal self. He had 3 fumbles and lost 2 of them on Monday. And I mean, they have other injuries too. Jimmy Smith didn't play, and I think that he would have been the guy to lock up on Waller, and obviously they missed him, and now they have to face Travis Kelce. So I just don't see how anything is lining up good for the Ravens in this one.
Will you go in Kansas City then?
I would consider that. Yeah, I have a feeling it might be a semi-popular pick. Yeah. Although you got to figure that a lot of the sharp players in this contest are going to take the Ravens just because it's valuable. You know? So I don't know. Maybe it's a game. Maybe we should try to stick to our preseason plan and just pass. But
not the Sunday, Monday games, huh?
Yeah. Although I do like the Packers. We could talk about that next. But I got to say it too. I made some notes here. Kansas City's defense was not good either. We got to say that. 457 yards against Cleveland and 8.2 yards per play against Baker and company. So I do think that Baltimore should move the ball.
Yeah, Cleveland was all over the place. They were all up and down on that team, and it was just kind of a couple of plays. They gave up a 75-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill. Didn't they have another? What was it? Was it the punter? The punter couldn't handle the snap, and then he ran it out, and they got stuffed at the 10-yard line. I mean, they were up in that game. They had the game. They gave it away. So I think Cleveland's really good this year. I'm on board with them. But I guess what I'm trying to think too is just kind of. We talked about the line for Cleveland last week. Where were they 6-point dogs on the road or something? Yep. So that's essentially 3 on a neutral. We're basically saying that the Ravens are sick. It would be the same 6.5 if they were playing in Kansas City. On a neutral would be right. I mean, trying to think about the teams going into the season. We wouldn't have put it there, but you're right. The injuries have affected Baltimore. They could be like San Francisco last year, where they're just cratering. So I'm okay to stay away, but I think all the sharps are going to be on Baltimore, like you said.
Yeah, I looked up the number last year. It was Kansas City +3 in that game, actually.
I thought, and I think that we went with them in that one, perhaps. Yeah. So it was one of these things that they shouldn't, whatever. Those teams are more like even, It's a big line move from a year.
Just to step back on one thought, though. So would you concur that Cleveland and Baltimore should be about equally rated at this point in the season?
I think they should be at this point. I think going into the season, yes. I think after Monday, the first week's performance, no. because I think Baltimore didn't play as good as Cleveland. But I think if you put those teams on a neutral field beginning of the season, just numbers wise, yeah, those two teams are really close. I think that's why they're really close to win the division. And I
Hmm.
do like Cleveland a little more with the injuries now, but we're talking about what, a half a point or a point. We're not talking about 3 points.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my thoughts were at.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about the last game. The Monday night game is Detroit against Green Bay. Detroit obviously came back somehow. Schwaz trying to peddle Jared Goff on me with his 30 fantasy points, trying to take a
Nice.
back from me. I'm like, come on, bro. Come on. Goff sucks. And then Green Bay, laid an egg, 3 points. Green Bay opened as a 10-point favorite at home, 48-point total. Same total. They're 11 points in the contest. you know, you got to figure Green Bay's going to bounce back. I don't know if it's a smash spot, but division dog, blah blah blah. But this is Detroit, and they were getting crushed by San Francisco. Let's not forget, for like whatever 3 quarters and 2 minutes, they were down by what, 30 points or something. I mean,
Yeah.
it was kind of a miraculous comeback, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I agree. I would only look at this game one way, and that's to lay it with the Packers. I think this is has everything written on it about a bounce back spot for Aaron Rodgers and co.
Right,
And the loss of Jeffrey Okuda, I think I put it up there because I think it's really big for them. He was like their only defensive back who was worth anything, and now without him, I don't know how they're going to stop the Packers.
right, right. Okay, well, maybe 11 points is a lot. It's hard for me to
Yeah,
sweat
I
that
know.
on Monday, but well, let's review some of our picks, so just so we know we can get it down to a reasonable thing. And I may have to consult my spider bite on my face to get some luck here. Um, Carolina, the divisional dog. We kind of talked about this as possible. Is it four in our contest? I put four there. Is it four in our?
No, just 3.5 in the contest,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Not as good. Okay, I mean, I can maybe get there with you. We'll see. We're both on board with New England, right? The
Hmm.
-5 against the rookie QB. So let's lock that in. We're on opposite sides with the Bills and Dolphins, and I kind of understand where you're coming from, but let's not do it.
Okay.
Tennessee, we were on the same side there, or we were backing off of that, though.
Yeah, I have reservations about Tennessee.
Okay. The Bears, it doesn't sound like you're going to get on board with me on the Bears with 2.5 at
I
home.
would consider that. I would consider that one. We can put
Okay.
that in the maybe category.
The Jags, it doesn't sound like you can get on board with me in the 6 points. Not in the contest, and I appreciate that. We're both on with the Cowboys, and that's 3.5. That's even a
Hmm.
better number than we had before. So that's good. So that's two solid. We're against each other right now with the Ravens and then the Packers. So it sounds like we got to take the Packers because we're only like 50-50 on some of these games.
Yeah, perhaps we both liked Pittsburgh
Yeah.
-6. I highlighted that one green. So
Okay.
that's three pretty solid picks
Yeah.
by
Let's
my count.
put that on the card. And then we're going to have to decide, Philly.
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling that one's going to end up being a pretty popular pick by the Sharps
you think
too.
so?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it kind of boils down to, okay, I guess we're going to have to take the pack because I mean, well, we'll see. I mean, we'll put that on the shorter list. It sounds like we've got the three solid, but we need to decide between Carolina, the Bears. I'm not going to get on you with Buffalo, brother.
Okay.
Uh, Philly, and then Green Bay,
Green
I
Bay.
guess,
Yeah.
right there. So. All right. Well, this is what we do, America. We just talk about it and then we kind of revisit on Saturday. I'll be at the volleyball tournament on Saturday action. So I'll hit you between a break and we can talk about it between games. I'll be panting and sweating and drinking Modelo's with my buddies. And, shout out to my Modelo buddy who's not in the tournament, but I'm sure he'll be around.
What
Uh,
happened to Topo Chico? Did it fall
oh,
off the menu?
I'm a Topo Chico guy, but I'm more of a distributor.
Oh, I
That's.
see.
I mean, I'll drink like three Topo Chicos during the tournament, but I'm a Modelo cool down guy. So it's actually they say that drinking the carbs, especially with the Modelos during the game, gives you energy. That's what they
Oh,
say.
yeah. I'm sure. It gives me energy too.
Plus, it supports our buddy, Gallagher, who works for the company and never get a free sample. Thanks. He's not listening. So uh, well, let's go over where we're at in the contest. You wrote it down here. Thanks. I should have referenced this. 4,087 entries here. 196 of them went 5-0, however. So that's a lot. And then a bunch of went 4-1. We're basically in the top 20, 25% at
Yeah.
1,064th place. We went 3-2 last week. that's solid start. We like it. We said it. If we can go 60% all year, we'll definitely be in the money. It would be nice to build up a little lead before that point because we know we'll hit the skids at some point. So, not bad. Not a bad start, actually.
Yeah, I'm feeling great about where we are. 60% in week one is fine. I don't mind about the 5-0. Oh, I did want to mention, I heard on the radio this week, the breakdown of the quarters this year is 5-4, 5-4. So
Okay.
we get an extra week in this quarter to start the season.
Okay. So the first quarter is the 5 versus the second quarter.
Yep. 5 for the first quarter and 4 for the second quarter.
Okay. And then it's 5 and then 4 versus 4, then 5 at the end. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, good to know. So we've got a little extra week to catch up on the field, which is good. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, let's do this. We'll reconnect on Saturday and make our final picks. We'll get our proxy who met us out there. We forgot to mention, what do we say? It's DWJ Ward Enterprises, who's a super proxy from, he's located in Henderson, but he can make your picks in Nevada. So thanks to him, and be ready to make it happen this weekend.
That's right. We'll be sad that we won't be at Circa on Saturday morning to make our picks, but we'll be back there soon enough to collect our cash.
That's right. Collect the cash. So, well, follow us at Side Action Pod on Twitter. Follow me at Wegs on Twitter and Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
All right. Good luck, everybody.